Top 5 women calling for action on climate change. From sinking islands to drought-ridden savannas, women bear an outside burden of the global warming crisis, largely because of gender inequalities. In many parts of the world, women hold traditional roles as the primary caregivers in families and communities. The UN estimates 80% of those who have been displaced by climate change are indeed women. Today across the world, from boardrooms and policy positions to local communities, from celebrities to activism, women everywhere are using their voices to take leadership and call for action on climate change. Discussed below are the top 5 women who are calling for actions on climate change. Number 1, we have Hilda Heine. Climate change is literally at Marshall Islands President Hilda Heine's doorstep. Around my house, I have had to build a seawall, she says, because there is water coming over from the shoreline. The sea is encroaching quickly on President Heine's low-lying Pacific Island state, and over the past 4 years, the government has had to put in place adaptive measures like building coast protection systems and seawalls. Heine has taken to the international stage to share the story of her country and the difficult decisions her compatriots are facing, including the possibility of relocation. She chairs the Climate Vulnerable Forum, a group of some 50 countries particularly in peril from climate change, despite having contributed a pittance to atmospheric greenhouse gases. Second on our list, we have American actress and activist Jane Fonda. Jane Fonda has been a climate change advocate for a very long time. The star has been arrested 4 times so far for leading rallies in the US about climate change and calling for greater resources and government support for the issue. Not only is she putting herself at the front of the rally for change, Fonda has pledged that the red coat she has been wearing to the weekly marches will be the last piece of clothing she ever buys in a bid to be more sustainable. We cannot leave it to young people to fight this fight for their future by themselves. Third on our list, we have an indigenous activist named Hindo Omorao Ibrahim. Ibrahim from Bororo pastoralist community in Chad has spent the past 12 years working to bridge the gap between the international decisions on climate change with the reality on the ground. She says, "I want to tell people what it is like in my country." Traveling the nation to meet with indigenous groups, she kept hearing how much the environment was changing. "Each year, I am seeing resources shrinking and my people are struggling for survival," says Ibrahim. Next, we have a business and advocate, Wu Xianghao. Back in 1990, when Wu Xianghao first started documenting environmental issues as a young photojournalist in Beijing, she thought it was all about planting trees and keeping the streets clean. Few policymakers in China knew any different, prioritizing unbridled growth at any cost. As she moved into business and advocacy, Wu learned fast, and her patent cajoling helped shepherd the rehabilitation of the world's economy from an environmental pariah to a champion of greenhouse issues on the global stage. It involved tech. While international institutions publicly scolded China for its blanching factories and toxic waterways, Wu worked with officials behind the scenes to help infuse global standards into industry and urban planning. For a long time, we were ignored, marginalized, but now we are pretty much mainstream. Now CEO of the Future Innovation Center, Wu continues to advise governments and corporations on sustainability strategy and the low-carbon economy. Fifth on our list, we have a young activist named Greta Thunberg. In 2018, this 15-year-old Greta Thunberg started a school strike in Sweden to draw attention to the climate crisis, and since then, her message has spread despite her avoidance of air travel because of its high carbon emissions. Young people across the world have followed her path, striking and marching to make clear to adults and decision makers that this is a true emergency. And why should we bother to learn facts when facts don't matter in this society? In late August, she landed in the US after a 15-day boat trip across the Atlantic, and she has plans for a month-long tour of the Americas with a zero carbon footprint. Thank you very much for watching.